don't want to alarm anyone, but every game you are about to see in this video is fake. Okay? But check it out. It's educational time because I have my pointer. Every game I'm going to show you in this video is fake, but fake in different ways. Okay? One of the things that I do a bunch of for people is verifying video games. So I will go and they will get a copy of something, a cartridge game, Super Nintendo, whatever it is, sometimes even cover arts, and they'll get a game and they'll say, I don't know, it looks kind of weird. Is it real? I don't know. And for the longest time, I would tell people that I'm very opposed to repros, reproductions. Reproduction games are something that is very common. They're floating around everywhere. You'll see listings for them online. Sometimes they'll say, yes, they're repros. Sometimes they won't. I'm very against them because I've had to spend a lot of time giving people the bad news. And what that bad news is, hey, nice game, except it's fake. And you paid probably what was actual real good money for it, only to find out that you had been duped. But there are a couple of different kinds of fakes, repros, bootlegs, homebrews, that kind of thing. And I felt like I was kind of doing a disservice by every time I said, I hate repros so much, that I wasn't really going into detail about what they are and what they aren't and why they are and why they aren't. So I wanted to take a little time today to show you guys fake games. All of the games that you're going to see in this video are all sitting right here, and every single one of them are fake, okay? They're not official licensed games. They're not officially recognized by Nintendo or whoever. All these are Nintendo for this. But they're all illegitimate, and you shouldn't be spending a bunch of money for them. But all three of these games really kind of show a good swath of what is a reproduction, what is a fake, what is a bootleg, what is a homebrew, what is a hack, that kind of thing. So we're going to get into it. At the end of this, you're probably going to have a little bit of a better idea of what my stance is, and I'll try to not bore you with the details of why I don't like repros. Informational. Really, this is a big informational one. I'm hesitant to do a video on how to do game verification. There's a lot of really good resources out there, but as people put out the good resources, what ultimately ends up happening is the people that make the fake games see the videos that say, hey, always do this, and then they start to do that. One of the things on Game Boy Advance Pokemon cartridges is that they had a number embossed. And so they said, if you could see a number embossed in the label, that meant it was authentic. And then the people making the fake games started to come out with putting a little embossing on there. And then that stopped being a viable way to verify a game. Long and short, if you want to verify a game, take it apart and look at the board. All of these boards, which we'll look at all these boards, every single one of these boards is going to be painfully obvious that it is a fake. And I'm going to show you why. Sometimes it's going to be quality. Sometimes it's going to be a part is missing. And sometimes you're going to look at it and go, oh, well, this is totally a fake. This is informational, okay? If you want to get into game verifying, there are a ton of good resources out there. But again, this is one of those instances where knowledge is power, and understanding what you're looking at and why, that's the best way to start. If you believe that you have a fake, definitely send me a message, hit me up, and it's something that we can look at, and I can tell you if it's a real or it's a fake. But it's something that I'd much rather have a conversation with someone so that I can learn all the details, okay? The first one we're going to go over today are the ones that I kind of don't hate, okay? So this is Metroid Fusion for the Game Boy Advance, all right? But this is Metroid Fusion for the Game Boy Advance homebrew. Not even homebrew. It has a bunch of different names. I would call it, it's a hack. I would call it a hack. I would call it a mod, a homebrew, a bunch of different things. This, in this kind of case, okay, this is with hard mode. This didn't exist. This never existed normally. So it's not like, if you're going out and looking at a game or something and you see this and you go, oh, this looks really neat. I didn't know that they made a clear blue. It's because they didn't. Okay. So that's the first warning sign to you that there is something that is going on here. I don't think most people are going to think that this is actually a real game. They might, but this is where it's like, this is a drastic difference from, this is the normal color that you're used to for the Game Boy Advance cartridges. This is totally different. So it's, you would know. That's what I'm kind of getting at. The first big thing when you're looking at any of these fake games, repo games, anything else, if you see a listing for a game and you go, wow, that is priced so well, that is priced incredibly well, it's probably a fake. It's probably a fake. The days of finding a Game Boy Advance game, a Pokemon game, or Mario or something online being sold for dirt cheap, that's really rare, okay? Nowadays, people know how much things cost, and people are going to charge accordingly, so it's not like you're going to run across, this really amazing deal, and you were shocked that you were able to get it, you know what I mean? So, we'll get this one open. This doesn't look anything like the actual authentic one. So if you were to look this up online, you would say, well, I can't find it anywhere. It doesn't look, because it doesn't exist. Some of the key giveaways, obviously the cartridge being translucent blue should be a big takeaway for you, because they didn't really make those. The Pokemon games had translucent colors, but the Metroid, if you look up the Metroid, all the standard ones are going to be that solid gray. So first and foremost, it's not like it's a weird variant. It's literally just something that, oh yeah, this is not a thing that existed. It also says, if the phone will focus for me, it also says hard mode on the label. It says with hard mode. Now that should also tell you that why would they post with hard mode on there? Obviously, again, not real. The back, dead giveaway, because it's going to look weird like this, just a lot of weird little dots, stuff you're not necessarily used to. And then we'll pop it open. And again, this isn't a verification video. This is more just me showing you guys a couple of different kinds of fake games and kind of identifying them a little bit. Well, first of all, a handful of issues. First and foremost being, I don't even know what that says. See if we can get it to focus on this. Nehetedo. That famous game company. So obviously, as soon as you pop it open, if you see something like this, Nintendo products are always very well made. They're always quality products. So if you pop it open, Nintendo is going to be spelled correctly, and the font's going to look good. This font looks like crap, okay? But I guess I don't understand why they took the time to try to print Nintendo on here. There's no point, because we know that this isn't a real game, because they never made Metroid Fusion with hard mode. So for them to take the effort to make something like this and then print it on the board, this isn't going to fool most people. There are still some people that are going to get tricked by this. Oh, I didn't know this was a variant. That's neat. That's cool. And then they're going to end up buying it and then realizing that it's fake. Luckily, these things are also priced fairly cheap. But that's really the first rule. Like I said before, if you find a game, you find a Pokemon game in Game Boy Advance or something, and you go, wow, this is priced so low, give it a very thorough look, because you're not going to see a lot of priced very low games. So this game I would identify as a homebrew, a hack, a repro, not a repro, a homebrew, a hack, a mod, just not a repro, because it's not trying to tell you and it's not trying to convince you that it is an authentic duplication. Okay, so no one is going to mistake this for a game that they bought from a store, just because of how visually different it is from all the other ones. If you Google Metroid Fusion right now and you look at the images, the GBA cart, it's going to look very different to this. So this is a stark contrast to what is normally known for Metroid Fusion. This is by far the simplest thing that you can identify and say, oh, well, this is a different one. This is a fake. And people want to call these repros. And I don't think these are repros because they're not reproducing anything that was officially released. Okay, this is a hack. And it's a hack for two reasons. One, because it has a with hard mode, which means there's a modification to it. And looks completely different. Okay, I'll make a running list somewhere around here just to kind of give you an idea of all the different ones that we're looking at. So next we have this little guy. I have tricked a handful of people with this, not actually like sold it or anything, but I have posted a picture of this and said, does this look real? And I've unfortunately had a number of people, including a number of game verifiers, that have said, looks good to me. And it does, it looks, nothing wants to focus because this is all very, there you go. It looks good. I mean, if we get real close on things, and it might want to focus, it might not, that's okay. If we get real close on it, it still looks pretty good up close. The official wording looks kind of weird. But, let's pop it open. Let's see how we're looking with this. Remember what the title of this video is too, okay? So keep that in mind. Screws obnoxiously short. We pop this open. What? Well, it's got a battery. It's got a battery. It's got the chip. It says Nintendo. It's spelled correctly. What's the problem with this one? Does the front match the AGB? Well, that's different. So what's wrong with this one? Anybody know? Talk amongst yourself. What does everyone think? Well, for starters, they never made Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Ages, or Oracle of Seasons for the Game Boy Advance. Okay, they made it for the Game Boy Color. There is a digital version that you can buy for the 3DS, but they never actually made Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Ages, and Ocarina of Seasons, Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons, goodness. They never made this in Game Boy Advance. Never existed. I have both of the Game Boy Color carts. Again, I don't want to show any real games in here because every game in this video is fake. This one is an interesting one because if you saw this on here, you would go, oh, what's a good price for a Game Boy Advance edition of Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Ages? Well, they're all fake. Now, what they're doing is kind of an interesting little bit of technology where they have taken basically a Game Boy Color game, the ROM of a Game Boy Color game, and put it onto a Game Boy Advance cartridge. This can play in any Game Boy Advance cartridges or any Game Boy Advance controllers. But the reason for that is because the Game Boy Advance can play Game Boy Color games. So it's a clever little thing that they're doing with it. But the key takeaway here is that this game never actually existed in this format. Okay, so if you found it in a store and they said, hey, we're selling the very rare Game Boy Advance game, Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons, you'd go, wow, what a great deal. Wait, that never happened. This one I also kind of identify as a low threat because it doesn't exist technically. If you look at the Nintendo lists of the full Game Boy Advance games, if you look at the Zelda lists of all the games that came out, you're not going to see a GBA edition of Legend of Zelda Oracle of Ages. You're just not. So if you went and you tried to price this out, you go on price charting or eBay or something and you look up the prices for this, you'll see prices, but you'll see a lot of times people saying like, oh, this is a repro. Is this a repro? No. This is not a repro, okay? Because this is not a reproduction of a game that was formally and officially made. This is a totally separate thing. So what's the difference between these two? Okay, this game has been modified. This game has with hard mode, okay? So it's been modified, it's been hacked, it's been had things altered to the game itself. This one is still the pure ROM of the game, just on a different form. No one's modified it or anything. If you turn on this Metroid Fusion with hard mode, some of the carts will identify that it is a modified one. So they'll say the name of the mod or whatever, and they'll say that at the splash screen. On this one, it'll just look like normal. Well, it'll look like Game Boy Color game, but it'll look like normal. But since it never existed in this format, it's not like you're going to accidentally get tricked by this one either. So if you see these two on the shelf, and you say, I didn't know they made a with hard mode for Metroid, and I didn't know they made it in the clear plastic like the Pokemon. They didn't because it's fake. You look at this one, you go, I didn't know that they made Game Boy Advance Legend of Zelda Oracle of Ages, because they didn't, because it's also a fake. But these aren't necessarily going to fool most collectors. These are also fairly cheap. I think this one I spent $25 on, and this one I got both of them, and I got Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons, and I want to say I spent 40 on them, but it was a while ago. Knowing what they were, I knew what both of these were. I bought this one specifically for this video and because I want to try the hard mode, but I bought it specifically for this. I have a Metroid Fusion cart, okay? I have both Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons in Game Boy Color. I have the real versions of these, so it's not like I'm, I know what I'm buying. But I hope that these kinds of games don't fool people, because it just requires a little tiny bit of research, and you go, oh, well, this didn't exist. Okay, cool. It's like, I don't know. It'd be like if there was a concert where it was Jimi Hendrix and he was playing with the Queens of the Stone Age, and you were like, oh, I didn't know that they did a concert. Well, it didn't exist. It never happened, that kind of thing. So for these, in these two, just keep in mind that I don't consider these repros, okay, because they are not reproducing and they are not a reproduction of anything that actually existed. So these are hacks, homebrews, whatever you want to call them. If you ask me to verify these, I'll totally help you verify these. I'll go, well, they didn't make a clear plastic. Well, they didn't make a Game Boy Advance. Easy. But the ones that I don't like, these people buy for fun. They buy because it's neat, interesting, that kind of thing. And it doesn't really hurt anyone because you're not spending a small fortune. The one that I don't like is this little guy. This is a reproduction. Okay, it's not a very good reproduction, but this is a reproduction. Okay, this was made by a company in the interest of trying to convince people that it was the real thing. Now, this is where it's going to take a little bit of explanation. As I'm explaining, I'm going to take apart the cart so you can see the inside. If you've seen my video on the Earthbound Real and Repro comparison, you'll know what the inside looks like, but just in case, we'll still take it apart and you can see what we're talking about. Okay? I do not like these because these can trick people. I have the two Game Boy Advance games. I have actually a handful of Game Boy Advance games that are these. They're the modifications, the homebrews, the hacks, the games that never existed. I have a bunch of these because they're just a novelty. And if I put them on my shelf and someone sees them, they're like, oh, that's neat. But most gamers are going to know that they're not real. This guy, on the other hand, it's interesting. And I get into this conversation with people a lot where they say, well, I just like the idea of having the cart on my shelf so I can have it sitting on my shelf. Told you it wasn't a very good repro, but they tried. And they say, well, I like having the idea of having the cart on my shelf and I have a physical item that I can put in there and I can pop into the console and everything. I get it. I'm not trying to discourage anyone from buying a game so they can put it on their shelf. What I am discouraging people from is supporting reproduction companies. Okay. And the reason being, the person that I bought this from didn't realize this was a fake. Okay. And they bought it thinking that it was legitimate, and they spent a good deal of money on this thinking it was legitimate. I don't know if I got into the full story in the other video, but he thought this was real. He spent what is real Earthbound money for this, and then realized that there was something wrong. it also doesn't play correctly. If you put this in a Super Nintendo, I've put this in my Super Nintendo, the Retron, the Analog. If you put it in the Super Nintendos, any of those, and you play it, it doesn't sound the same as an authentic cart. I have the authentic cart. I have this reproduction cart. You put them side by side. You have them playing on two TVs at the same time, and it just looks different. Not necessarily enough that would convince someone, hey, maybe this isn't a real thing. But if it was just by itself and they didn't have anything to compare it to, well, and that's my big issue. I don't want to shame anyone from them not being able to afford authentic video games right now. Okay, I don't want anyone to think that I'm looking down on you and being like, you can't afford Earthbound? Oh my gosh. The only reason I have an Earthbound card is because I went to Toys R Us the day the dang game came out and bought it. Okay, I don't know if I would be spending Earthbound cart money nowadays. That's a lot of money. I get that. And I understand when people say that they want to have something that they can put on their shelf and put it in the console and do this, that, and the other. But it is such a fine line with these games where someone's just doing it because they want to be able to put an authentic cart into their console and play it. Why not an EverDrive? Why not an Easy Flash? You know, if you have to have an authentic cart, why not get something like that? I mean, heck, why not support any of those kinds of developers right now? Why not support, you know, a flash drive or a flash-based cart like an EverDrive, and you can pop one in and you're off and running because they like the idea of taking the cart in and out? I guess I have a very hard time believing that people that want authentic carts don't also want the flex of, check me out, I got an Earthbound cart, no big deal. Because, you know, at this level, it looks terrible. But if you put it on the shelf and you were just going through and you're like, yeah, I got Earthbound, no big deal. I don't know. So these trick people, I know these trick people, the person that I got this from had gotten tricked. I have had the luxury of telling people on a, unfortunately, regular basis that they have purchased fake games. You go on our game verifying, or you go on any number of Discords, you'll find someone that'll say, oh my gosh, I found a real game, I'm so excited, and I bought it. And someone goes, oh, that doesn't look right. When it comes to these, it's not a big deal because, of course, they don't look right because we know that they don't exist. But when it comes to something like this, a true reproduction, you could be easily convinced. You know, you're at the game store and you're looking at this and you go, man, I've never seen Earthbound before. So you wouldn't know that it's not supposed to look crap like this, right? And really, that's kind of just the thing I want to avoid, is I want to avoid people buying these games thinking that they're legitimate and then realizing that they had been tricked. No, I'm not saying that any one of you out there that owns a reproduction copy is going to try to sell it and con someone out of your money. And every single person that I talk to that has a reproduction game promises me that they'll never sell it. Okay, great. Then how are reproduction copies and reproduction games getting out into the wild? All right. How's that happening? So just, I would behoove people, if they have a reproduction, to market in some way, to market in something that says that it is a reproduction. I keep this in a case that has reproduction printed on it intentionally. Also, significant damage to the entire case is going to tell people that this is a reproduction. The front looks clean, the back, the insides, everything else are going to throw people off easily. But I also make sure that I keep around some very good examples of reproductions so that I can show people, hey, this is the kind of thing that's floating out there. And this is the kind of thing that people can fall for. If you wanted Earthbound and you wanted Earthbound on a cart, you could get it on a Game Boy Advance cart and you could play it portably. And it's a fantastic way to play. And it never existed in the United States on a Game Boy Advance cart, so why not do that? Well, I want to play it on my Super Nintendo. Okay, fine. You can also get Earthbound. You can get all three of the Earthbounds, all three of the mother games on a Super Nintendo cart that's super duper fake. Everyone knows that it's fake. It's no big deal. Why do you need to have the authentic, legitimate shelf flex but you don't want to spend the correct money to get it. I get that they're expensive, but at the same time, this keeps tricking people and costing people hundreds of dollars just so you can have something on your shelf. I don't know. It's a tough sell for me. I wish more people would avoid reprinting cover arts and reproduction Super Nintendo cards and reproduction Nintendo cards. Buy things that are clearly, obviously not authentic. Maybe stay away from the reproductions, because these trick people. These only trick people a little bit until they get their wallet out, basically. So, to recap, I'm going to put them in order of which one I do and don't like the most. Actually, there we go. This is an order of what I do and don't like the most. This never existed on Game Boy Advance, okay? Never existed on Game Boy Advance. So it'd be like if they put Call of Duty on Game Boy Advance. One of that wouldn't work. If they put, I don't know, Demon Souls on Game Boy Advance, well, you knew that it never existed, so you don't have to worry about it. This one, it has a lot of visual indications, including a with hard mode, and just a lot of obvious factors that'll tell you that it's not legitimate, okay? Easy enough. This bottom one, all day long, is that they're just trying to convince people that it's real. And they're trying to convince people that it's real because the guy that bought this from another collector who they did a sale through a game store. He thought it was real. The game store thought it was real. Everyone thought it was real because it was packaged with some other real games and nobody did their due diligence. Okay? But that's the thing, is that at the end of the day, yes, it's up to the individual buyer, to make sure that what they're buying is authentic. But if you didn't have to worry about these, if reproductions didn't exist at all, if everyone just had EverDrives, why would you worry about it? The irony is that the amount of money that this guy paid for this cart, he could have bought an EverDrive. He could have bought 2 EverDrives, actually, now that I think of it. He could have bought 2 EverDrives, loaded up a ROM of Earthbound on it, popped it into the console and called it a day. Instead, this thing of evil had to come into existence. I have yet to have someone explain to me why they need a physical copy of a fake game that they can't actually afford on their shelf. And the only answer I really get from people is, I like it. Okay, well, it's screwing people over all the time, so maybe work on it. Like I said, all of these games are fake for different reasons. When I say I am not a fan of reproductions or repros, it is these that I am not a fan of. I'm fine with these two because these two are easy for people to identify as being fake. You're also missing the ESRB rating. I just noticed that. You're also missing the Nintendo logo. Tons of stuff. The longer you look at it, the more you'll be like, well, wait a minute, that's fake, that's fake, that's fake. But it's this guy right down here. I just don't understand the need for it. I don't understand why it's floating around. Just my biggest takeaway for you guys for this is to be careful with what you're buying. And if you feel like you have to buy a reproduction because you can't afford the regular, I'm not shaming you if you can't afford the regular. Video games are very expensive. I totally get that. But look at an EverDrive cart. Look at a cart that's in a different color, something like that. That's something that's popping up more and more, is that people are taking regular carts and making them translucent, adding paint, colors, different kinds of things to them, and then putting ROMs on them. Maybe look at something like that. The crafted ones, the modded ones. Just consider it, because people still get tricked by these things. And I know you would never sell your reproduction games, but these are strange times that we are living in, and people do strange things from time to time. So I won't do too many more verification videos. I do have planned a fake cover art verification video. It's actually going to be pretty simple. It's just about the thickness of the paper and the weight of the paper itself. We'll do that later. I'm trying to get a couple of different sources together. Until then, this is a fake game. This is a fake game. This is a fake game. This is a reproduction. And these modifications, homebrews, hacks, ROMs, whatever you want to call them, these are bad. These are fine for what they are, whatever. These are bad. Got it? Make sense? If you do have any questions about a listing, a game that you own, something that you ran across or something, feel free to hit me up in the comments and I will help you verify them. It's a matter of comparing the PCBs themselves. Can't see it in that one. Comparing the PCBs themselves against documented and known PCBs. That's the way to go. There's a fantastic resource out there that people can use that have pictures of all authentic Nintendo PCBs. That's the board. And so you can compare it to the pictures. If you were at a game store, game convention, flea market, private sale, whatever it is, and they don't let you open it up, if you have your little 3.8 millimeter bit and they don't let you open it up, don't buy it, okay? Because obviously something weird's going on. If you're at a game store and you say, hey, can I buy this? But can I open it up first? And they don't let you. And heck, if you're at a game store and they don't have a 3.8 millimeter bit and they don't have a Triwing to open up these, and they don't appreciate that you're asking to verify the games, maybe consider not supporting them, okay? Because if they're refusing to show you that it's authentic and they're refusing to let you do your due diligence to make sure that a game is real, you don't necessarily need to support them. I've heard this from a handful of game store owners before where they say, I have no problem if people come in and they want to check and verify a game, especially if it's an expensive game. If you want to come in and verify a $10 game all the time, maybe not. If you're dropping Earthbound money or Chrono Trigger money, something like that, and you want to verify it, the store should help you. If not, maybe that's trying to tell you something. So until next time, this will go in the repros playlist. There'll be a bunch of different things in there. These are bad. These are fine. But like I said, just be smart about what you're buying. Is it priced correctly? Is it from a known reputable seller? Does it look right? And does everything just kind of seem like it makes sense? Does it check all the boxes? Did it actually exist? Right? Until next time, these are all spotless clean, so I don't have to worry about that. But I'm going to keep cleaning some other games. All right? See you guys. Real quick, I finished the video, and I was thinking about it where I said that the repros were bad because of a sociological issue, because people can buy them and they can be tricked and that's terrible and they can spend a lot of money. One of the things that I didn't really want to get into, but I feel like I need to explain another reason why I'm not a fan of reproductions is actually that there are reports of some reproduction games having issues. The reports go from the board being fried to the console catching fire. Now, the majority of these come from claims of voltage shifting chips not being the correct ones. I am not an electrical engineer by any means, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys, that this means this or that this is the what all the science means and everything. I know restoration. I know like plastics and polymers. That's the kind of stuff I know. I'm not going to try to tell you much about the electronics. I do know that the folks that make the EverDrive, he is very adamant about his EverDrives being super safe because they have the voltage shifting chips. So what I'm going to do at the bottom of this video is I'm going to link to a couple of different conversations that people have had, including with the creator of the EverDrive, where he talks about how his are a little bit different. A few articles that are floating around out there. You're also going to see a lot of articles from people saying, I have used Repro carts and they're perfectly fine. For me, if there's any possibility that a reproduction cart can hurt one of my systems, I'm not going to run it. I put this in the Retron 5. That's my test system. I'm not going to put it in my original system because you saw the inside. I don't know. So are there reports that reproduction carts can hurt your consoles? Yes, there are reports of it. It's not like, I use it for years and there's no problem. Great. You ever been eaten by a bear? No? Well, other people have. That's how that works. So just because it's not necessarily a thing that has happened to you or the guy next to you doesn't mean that it's not potentially going to happen. A big reason to avoid these. But like I said, I don't have that much experience with reproductions in general. This is maybe the 5th or 6th one that I have. And I don't use them very regularly because I'm very much a stock and basic OEM kind of fella. I don't modify my consoles or anything. Everything is stock and originals so that I can maintain them for, all this nonsense as I point to the game room for all that nonsense. But it is something to keep in mind, and it is something to do your research when you are buying a reproduction cart. Maybe learn what you need to know about the voltage, learn what you need to know to make sure that the thing that you're buying is safe and will not mess up your cart. Again, it's internet speculation, and that's one of the reasons why I was hesitant to even add this caveat to the end of it. There are people who say, yes, I've had this issue. There are people who say, no, I have not had this issue. I guess buyer beware as far as that goes. But it is something that I did want to address as one of the reasons why I just personally completely avoid reproductions. You don't know what you're getting. They're throwing them together and you're hoping that it's going to work on your console. There's no guarantee. It's not like you can return this to GameStop with your GPG and say, I want a refund. It's a fake cart. Just something to keep in mind, and that's the big thing. I know a lot of you guys don't have like a test console to play this on, so you might not want to run the risk of messing up your original hardware. For me, if something happened to my original Super Nintendo, I'd be devastated because I still remember the Christmas I got that. So just something to keep in mind. I'll link a couple different articles on the bottom, a couple different forums, the comment from the EverDrive guys. See what you think. See if that kind of convinces you one way or the other. Just something to keep in mind. Just wanted to make sure that I add that little bit, because more importantly than playing video games clean is to make sure that you're playing them safe and that your consoles aren't going to catch on fire or the discs aren't going to shatter or anything like that. Just something to keep in mind. Wanted to add that little bit to it. Until next time, thanks, guys. I'm going to get back to cleaning and actually continue working on a few other series I have going. All right, see you guys.